It's the Underpowered Hour on this week's show. The OCTA reviews are in. You'll have to wait a little bit longer for the Electric Defender. And then we do some workshop updates. And finally, it's Land Rovers in the movies. And now, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Beres, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at theberescollection.com or follow us on Instagram at theberescollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the frosty windshield to Steven's heated glass. I am the poorly visible host of podcasting. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, this week in the news, it's everything OCTA. Man, and our good friend Nick Dimbleby is with them, I believe, over there in parts of Africa, South Africa and Northern Africa and Central Africa, and I don't know exactly where, somewhere in Africa. It's a small place. It shouldn't be hard to find them. They are OCTA-ing up a storm. Holy moly.
Imagine being a poor visitor and just seeing like 30 of those things just blow by at 120 miles an hour.
You make $3 a year.
That's gotta be a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, it kind of puts a new flavor to the first vehicle that most third world countries see as a Land Rover. A little different.
Just a bunch of dudes doing Brodies in your village.
Yep. Exactly. And what a better vehicle for it, man. That thing is pretty awesome. The Top Gear video, in my opinion, of all of the review videos, is probably that's the most fun. I don't know the guy. It's not like one of the more known Top Gear people, or at least not to me. And he talks all about, putting it into rally mode and all the different sort of things it can do and the different tires that are available and all that sort of stuff.
So can you give us a Cliff Notes?
Yeah, basically, he's a huge fan. It's what they, it's funny. He actually described it as the Ford Raptor of Defenders, which I think is exactly what Land Rover was going for, obviously, as it was designed by the Raptor guy, and was really happy with it. He really enjoyed his time, it sounded like, really had a great time. They got them jumping. They got them doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah. And then he sat down with one of the engineers from JLR that was there who worked on OCTA. And they had a great conversation about the suspension, how it works, all that sort of stuff. So I would suggest, we'll put it in the show notes, but I would suggest go and check out the Top Gear review of the OCTA because it's really good. They did a great job. It's a very thorough review of the OCTA. So there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think the reason for this, there's been a sort of journalism like blackout on these things for a while. So people have been reviewing them, but they can't share their photos and articles and stuff until midnight on Monday or something.
Something like that. Yeah. So this has just become like an OCTA blitz.
A flood of
OCTA. A flood of murder of OCTAs, a bro of OCTAs. What do you call octais? Octopi? Octais? Yeah, it's not sure. Octais. I don't know. Anyways, it's a fun car. I would like one very much. I think they're really neat. And
when do you get yours?
I'm not going to get one of the first edition ones. I'm not paying the extra $40,000 just for a little sticker. I'm going to wait and get one of the release versions because I will probably beat the crap out of mine. And
you're going to jump it?
I'm going to jump it. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to jump it out of the dealership.
I can vouch for Steven's desire to jump this thing. I have been in a Land Rover while he's jumped it. And if anyone needs an OCTA because of the way they drive, it's definitely Steven.
I do. I need that just to save Ike's lower spine from compression.
Still recovering.
Yeah.
Still recovering. I'm sending you a bill for all the chiropractic work.
Yeah, there was I follow this girl in the UK who is...
she's got to be scared.
I follow her around and, hide in her trash when she's out. But no, on Instagram, and speaking of lower spine injuries, she had an injury to her spinal cord, the lower part of her spinal cord. Not severed, but an injury to the point where she was paralyzed from the waist down. And they have performed some type of implant into her brain and a repair on some part of her spinal cord that she is now able Chu, with some assistance from lower leg braces and things, able to walk again. And this is the first case of this being a success. And
did she also ride in a vehicle?
It was after, that's how the injury happened in the first place. Yeah.
Figures.
Is that I'm like, let's just go over this real quick. And then
brutal.
She was actually injured in the push starting of the car after the jump. Wasn't even the jump that did it. It was
I forgot that I push started that car after you jumped it and it died.
And it died because we knocked the solenoid wire off of the
fuel pump.
Yeah, off the fuel pump. So there was it wouldn't start. But now it starts fine. We just had to put that wire back on there and no problems at all. There was no harm, no foul.
Oh my gosh.
It was sand. It was a very soft landing. It was all right.
It was not sand. It's not a soft landing.
It was great. Speaking of not a soft landing, unfortunately, our good friends at JLR have said it's going to be a minute for the Defender EV. So if you were waiting to purchase your Land Rover Defender because of an anticipation of an upcoming EV, which if you read back about, I think it was about, 6 years ago now, they said, this is going to be, it was right around now that car was supposed to show up, but
2025.
Alas, not.
So they're saying, according to what they've released, that this is because there's an engineering hurdle.
That's right.
They can't physically fit all the electronic doodads into the chassis to make this electric car.
That's exactly right. Yeah, right now
you believe that?
I don't know.
Do you believe it?
I think that there's also an incredibly soft market for EVs right now, and I'm not sure.
There's also some political headwinds, at least here in the United States, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Land Rover's biggest market.
That's right. And so I think the idea was, can we just make an L633 electric? Can we shove some batteries in there, just sort of occupy that customer base a little bit? But as it turns out, no, you cannot do that. They do have to wait for this, either the MLA or the EMA or the GAA or whatever the hell the acronym is for the right one for the Defender rather. They do have to wait for that, and so it'll be a little while. And I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, there was a huge backlash against EVs because of their performance in cold weather and things like that. A lot of that is half truths. They are fine in cold weather.
You've done a lot of research, I believe, into operating electric vehicles in cold weather. What's your thoughts on that?
You do lose range in cold weather, but you lose range in the core depending on the battery system that you use, and if the car is plugged in and charged overnight and things, the loss can be as small as 5% of your range, because as soon as the vehicle is operational, it is heating the batteries, which doesn't actually take much energy because the batteries heat up as they're being used. So it just doesn't cool them as much, essentially. And if the car is plugged in while it's charging overnight and it's not just sat in the cold, not plugged in, then it's also keeping that system warm. So you're preconditioning the batteries and everything. You don't have that same loss.
But what about those pictures that you see on the internet, where people, there's like a line of traffic and people are stopped in sort of blizzard, and people will say, this is why I don't have an EV, is because I'm going to get stuck in a traffic jam in a blizzard and then I'm going to freeze to death.
The funny thing is you're not running the engine in that case. So you're not, you're heating.
Running the heating and cooling system.
You're running the heat exchanger in the car, and those are extremely energy efficient. So yes, if you were on 1% battery and you got stuck in that, then yes, like a gas car with 1% fuel in it, you would run out of fuel. And
but what if I had to spend like 3 days in a blizzard in a traffic?
I mean, I suppose it's possible that you would eventually run out of power, but I also think a gas car would run out. Now, of course, they would say, well, I've got 3 jerry cans of fuel in my trunk. To which I would say, why are you driving around with a trunk full of fuel? That's really not safe.
No, I think it's interesting, like how much backlash there has been to electric vehicles. Like it's another tool in the toolbox, right? If you have the option to have a different source of fuel, like what's so bad about that? But on the other hand, I feel like there's been a lot of greenwashing that electric vehicles are going to be the savior of the environment, when that's probably not actually true either.
Not until we have a completely green power grid for them to function on, right? Now, if you have a complete solar setup at home and you have a vehicle that is hopefully carbon neutrally manufactured, of which not a lot of EVs even come close to that, then
difficult.
You are potentially in a place where, yes, that car is a lot greener, but
even the term carbon neutral is sort of a greenwashing term because as we know, how are those carbon neutral? Oftentimes they're purchasing carbon credits.
That's right.
Carbon credits are, I'm gonna say they're a scam.
It is a scam. It's like, I'm not going to pollute as much so that you can pollute more. Over there. Yeah. It is. It's unlike something like Apple where, they're manufacturing computers and it's easier to make that a green process, recycle materials and things. Making a car, it just is a caustic, energy consuming business.
A lot of raw materials, a lot of mining, a lot of smelting.
You're not recycling an awful lot into a new car. It is tough. It's tough. And that's where the only really green way to go is to car share.
I get people's skepticism about the process when they're not being necessarily told the truth. But on the other hand, I feel like electric power is a viable source of propulsion.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is, and it's great. And like I said, I have the electric F-150, and it's fantastic. It's the best.
So even beyond electric cars, there's so many things that are electric transportation that people don't even think about.
No, trains
and golf carts and all these things that we've used for decades and people are like, oh, that's fine.
That's totally fine. Yeah, why not a car? Exactly. Yeah. No, and I mean in the UK, as I just got back, I took an all electric train down from Scotland the last time I was there. Not only was it super fast, but it was quiet and really comfortable. I mean, it is in many ways better. Now, overhead lines is often how they power those trains. Sometimes those get fouled, and so you end up waiting because of whatever. But that's the same as anything. Any mechanical system has an opportunity to break down. So you have to look at the aggregate, not at the specific, because on the aggregate, that electric propulsion has been around since the beginning of automobiles, and it works pretty good.
Yeah, but there's a lot of vitriol. People say, "Oh, I've converted my car to electric," and somebody else will say, "Oh, you've ruined it. It's ruined forever. Why would you do that?" Or just there's a lot
different
of
strokes,
vitriol.
People like that Chelsea tractor and Con Automotive stuff. They do that. Nobody gets on them except for us because
I think
it's our duty to do that. So that's what we're here for.
If I have no other purpose in life, it's to prevent those from being purchased.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of which, the Chelsea Tractor folks, Liza and I were looking at this morning, they now make like a weird little ducktail spoiler for the back of the Ineos Grenadier. So they're actually making, the funny thing is that they came out with a photo spread of all these new parts they're making for the Grenadier, and nearly in the same breath, a for sale of that same Grenadier went up on their website of the car. So they're like, okay, we made the parts. Now someone please buy this thing.
Every time I see that stuff, I think of the Japanese super van movement where they make all the fiberglass wings and fiberglass stuff all over them.
Yep. It feels very much that way. This is literally like an A-team little whoop-de-doo at the back of the thing. It's pretty great.
You need downforce in your Grenadier.
Yeah, it's really important. The handling, as we know, the steering in the Grenadier, which we've refused to ever talk about and never will, but is total shit. So
speaking of the back of Land Rovers, I'm told that there is an issue with the backup camera on certain models.
Apparently, there's a recall for 33,000. So not just a few, but 33,000 Defender models that can suffer a complete failure of the backup camera while you're backing up. And so the screen will just go black. And
that's not really that important considering how good the visibility is out the back of these vehicles.
The back of the new Defender. Yeah, it's great. And the fact that some of these vehicles, the mirror is also a camera. Now, I'm not sure if that camera is also affected.
I gotta think.
There's a world in which it's just a total blackout in there.
I gotta think.
Yeah, so that's a little,
I thought maybe the backup camera was accidentally installed on the front or something.
That's right. It looks forward instead. That's the issue is that it just looks into the car.
My favorite thing about backup cameras is the opportunity for pranks.
I know.
You put a little figurine or something behind the camera, and then when people turn it on, they get startled. That's good.
I was watching a video the other day that was a tiny little shopping cart that somebody had put behind, and the person got into the car in a mall, right? And somebody got in the car, and then they went into the backup camera, and there's a cart there, and then they get out, and they're like, "There's no cart. Somebody must have moved." They get in, and the cart's. It happened several times. It was pretty great. And it was tiny little shopping cart. It was very cute.
Yeah, tease your friends with their backup camera.
But yeah, if you have a Defender and you have a backup camera, you should double check that you are not part of this recall. We'll have the article in the show notes so you can take a look. And if you are, maybe get that looked at. You don't want to be suddenly backing over things.
Nope.
Maybe you do. I don't know. But anyways, if you do back over something, just tell them your backup camera was broken and it's not your fault. So speaking of backup cameras not working, the Halewood plant in the UK, which is a Jaguar Land Rover plant that produces, I think they did produce Jags. I'm not sure what they're making right now, but
if they did produce Jags, they're probably not making much.
Are they going to do the new Jag? Is that, I guess, the question? Like maybe, but anyways, they are going down to a single shift starting in April, from a 2-shift plant to a single shift plant, which unfortunately is a essentially 400-pound per week reduction for those individuals that work in that space, which is not great, obviously. And that is because Land Rovers is investing 500 million pounds into renovating that plant, because I do believe is where they are going to be making the new Jaguar.
Do we know what's happening? Speaking of new plants and new operations, Tata and the British government were talking about a battery gigafactory.
That's right, yes. Tata was holding the British government hostage over the paying for most of the new battery factory. I haven't heard anything about that lately. I don't know. Maybe that's another victim of the battery downturn.
Is that a thing that we should investigate as journalists?
We're going to get in there. We're going to do the hard work, and we're going to do the investigating, and we're going to find that information out. We're going to see what Tata is up to, because I don't know. They did say they were going to invest in that battery factory. They're going to build that battery factory.
And that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was 4 batteries for the electric Defender.
That's
if I'm not
correct.
mistaken.
I believe that's right. Yeah, it was for the new Defender. And,
which is not happening now in the near future?
In the near future, yeah. It sounds like it's going to be a little while.
Given the fact that they were going to release it like this
year,
the idea that they've just discovered that there's not enough room for battery packs in the chassis seems questionable.
It does seem a little off, does it not? Like, why you didn't... This is the first you've looked at it now?
I just waited 5 years. Nope, not going to fit.
Nope, not going to fit. Shoot, we should have looked at this 6 years ago.
Due out in 5 weeks, and we just figured out it's not going to work.
Seems a little fishy to me.
That doesn't smell good. Doesn't smell good.
It's not right.
Doesn't pass the smell test.
It's not right. But they are working on getting Halewood ready to make the new Jag, which means eliminating all round corners in the Halewood factory. They will only be acute angles. It's one of the things they're improving.
I wonder if that's because of those new robotic dogs that they use for security.
It's the Robo dogs.
That?
It's the Robo dogs. Also, the people from the Jaguar teaser video are the people who will be assembling that new car.
I think we need to do a better job of following up with the old articles that we've discussed.
Yeah.
Based on what's happening with the current crop of Land Rover news.
I agree.
I'm like, where are all these security robot dogs right now?
Yeah, what are they all doing? They're all at the bottom of a stairwell somewhere. They've all fallen down that same stairwell. They tried. They put up a little fence, but it
couldn't negotiate it.
They're
at the bottom of the stairwell in an abandoned battery factory.
They all Ed 209 down a set of stairs and are now, that whole project, they just abandoned the entire facility. That's it. It's just
for those of you that don't remember, Land Rover hired, is that the right word? Purchased?
I think he purchased them,
some of those robotic dogs.
Yep.
The Boston Dynamic robotic dogs.
Yellow
to navigate their factories, and they were demonstrating the robotic dogs, and it fell down some stairs. We haven't heard about it since, so we think they probably just took it to the kill shelter.
That's right. They took it to the robotic equivalent of Christine Ohm, and that was it. There was no more Robo Dog.
The Land Rover, that's going to be on eBay in like 5 years. You're going to see that Land Rover robotic dog on eBay.
A Land Rover labeled robotic. I'm a buyer there. I'm a buyer for sure.
I mean, you pretty much have to call that thing a Rover, right?
It is a Rover. Did they call it Rover? They better
I
have.
don't
I
know.
don't
They
know what
should
they
have.
did.
Missed
Yeah,
opportunity
probably not. Yeah,
otherwise.
if not. So speaking of missed opportunities, how are things going up there at Pangolin 4x4? What do you guys got going on in the shop?
Better than ever. We've got a lot to do before we leave for our African excursion. And, we're trying to wrap up some loose ends and make some headway on some projects and that sort of thing before we go.
Yeah.
We have sort of an interesting project right now. We have a 1968 88 soft top.
Ooh.
It was originally a U.S. sold car, so it would have come with a hard top on it, but it's been converted at some point in its life to a soft top. And for those of you that don't know, 68 is a one-year only model, and it is a negative ground car, but it has the inset headlights. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of neat. It has some features that the later cars don't have. It has some features that the earlier cars don't have. It has a single wiper motor. It has the later fresh air heater. It's a special car for the U.S. market that kind of only existed for a brief period of time. Maybe 6 months before they started making the Bug Eye, which you had one of.
I did. I do love a North American specific car. It's a big, I'm a big fan.
That is a kind of an interesting one. But somebody in its recent history, in its past, has fitted it with electric power steering.
Yes.
Which is sort of a conversion that's been going around.
People do it,
on the internet.
No judgment. If that's what gets you to drive your car, then great. And if done properly, can be nice.
Well, in this case, the new owner wasn't too chuffed with it and said, yard it out. So we are removing the electric power steering.
A reverse conversion. Is this your first reverse conversion from electric to manual steering?
This is the first one that we pulled out. We've, I feel like there's some things in the automotive world that are fads, if you will. They become popular and then, they lose either because people discover that they're not that useful or there's drawbacks or whatever. We've pulled out a few hydrogen generators on vehicles.
You gotta have those. You gotta
clog
get those
up the engine bay. Those were popular a little while ago. So we've pulled out some of those, but this is the first electric power steering conversion that we've pulled out. So the owner didn't like that, it was really handy for parking. And it's electric, so you can turn it off and on. So it was really handy for parking.
Yes.
But when it was on at speed, it felt twitchy.
Okay.
Because small inputs at the steering wheel translated to like wandering in the road. So they didn't like that. And the way this works is there's an electric motor in between, the steering box and the steering wheel.
That's right.
So the column is cut and then the electric motor put in between. And then the problem with that is because there's like a coupling and the steering column is no longer like rigid. So when you grab the steering wheel, there's like play in it from side to side. So that's a little disconcerting. They didn't like that. And, when it was off, the steering felt heavier than it would normally.
Than a properly. Because again, as we've said many times, a properly set up steering system is it's not bad. I think people experience a bad one and think that is what all manual steering is. But when set up correctly and when everything is properly lubricated, it's just fine. The vehicle's made for it.
One thing that we do find is that on cars that are fitting with steering dampeners, oftentimes steering dampeners are fitted because there's a geometry problem or because there's a problem with wear in the steering system. People will fit a steering dampener. They're like, oh, it's wandering. I'm going to put a steering dampener on it. Or it's, when I hit a bump, it's bouncing. So I'm going to put a steering dampener in it. Or it won't stay in its lane. So I'm going to put a steering dampener on it. It seems like a Band-Aid solution for an underlying problem.
Right.
So like the alignment's bad or there's play in the swivels or something like that. So, oftentimes we find that those cars that are fitted with steering dampeners have particularly heavy steering because you're overcoming, that resistance from the dampener. So it feels heavy and it still has steering problems. So we usually yard those dampers off, I've taken so many steering dampeners off because it shouldn't need that, to stay straight and be
a throne made out of steering damper.
Yes, I could do that. Yeah, we have a lot of them that we've taken off. So anyway, we're doing some steering work on that 6888. It's a good car, but it needs some, wiring and other stuff. So that's one thing we're working on. We're doing the rolling chassis right now for the coach-built wooden 80-inch.
That's my favorite. I cannot wait to
that's a really cool car.
See that car done. That is cool.
I'm excited about that one.
That's a good one.
We've got the engine, the transmission, the axles, etc., all built, and the chassis painted. So it'll be a rolling chassis here before long, and then it'll be bodywork and bulkhead and all that sort of thing, wiring, etc. So that's coming together. Hopefully we'll have that done by summertime.
Wow. I can't wait. I think that might be one of the most exciting things that you guys are all working on, because it's just so unique, and
just wait, we got some really neat projects in the pipeline, so we'll talk about those before long. There's been some fires down in your neck of the woods, is that right?
There has been some fires down very close now, literally in the throat of our woods here. It's been a little dicey here these last couple of days as we deal with some fires up here in the...
But you're not worried because you got a fire engine.
I do. And you know what? The thing is, I didn't go out and do any freelance firefighting, and I realized I should have,
Now, here's a question. Have you gotten the pumps working?
I have not, because in a conversation with our good friend, Michael Bishop, he noted that I am missing a hose reel from the fire truck, and it would cause just a geyser to come out of the top of the truck if we were to pump water through it. So I was just over in the UK, as you know, and Jean-Luc has the same one of the 8 Fireflies, and he does have a hose reel on his. His was complete with it, and he is going to photograph and send over some information on it and see if we can potentially source one, because there's no way that those things were one-off creations just for the Firefly. It ought to be something that, who knows, maybe that company's still around, or at the very least, if we get a good picture of it, we could pattern it or modify it to
reproduction.
Work with something new.
So now this brings up a good question. Now that you've had fires close to your place of business and your house, now the Firefly has to be your priority, right?
It is.
You have to
ship
get that
shape.
thing going.
Yeah, in ship shape. It runs great now. It does not have exhaust in the traditional sense, so it sounds like a Harley Davidson. And I think at this point, with the amount of oil and potentially gasoline leaking out of it, it would only make fires worse.
It would start fires rather than stop them.
Fires, yes. So, but we're going to get that sorted. The interior is looking incredible. We replaced...
I need to see some pictures of that.
Oh, it's so good. We replaced the seats and the door cards and all of that, as they were far beyond restoration. They were just too far gone, unfortunately. So that needed to be replaced, but we did get that done, and now it's just a matter of doing some little mechanical things. It needs, a little bit of work done on the transmission, and obviously needs an exhaust. We have to get under there and find out. John is doing the same thing with his. Their exhaust is also in need of repair, so we may have to commission.
It has a special exhaust.
It does. So we may commission a few exhausts. There's also another good friend of ours who has a Firefly, and so I'll have to reach out to him and see how his exhaust is. And maybe we do an order of we'll buy 8 exhausts. That way, if the other ones are ever located, there's actually 2 that are missing, so I guess we only need 6. And then everybody can have a new exhaust, because why not? That's a good thing to do.
All 8 of you.
All 8 of us, yes. We'll reproduce it to exacting standards and get that exhaust on there, because that makes the car a little more pleasant to drive. Now, because it weighs 1 billion pounds and has the standard Series 2A motor in it, it is the slowest vehicle in the world. I can't imagine with water in it how much slower it would be. You nearly need to drive it in low range, I imagine, with water in it, but it's just the most fun thing in the world. So
I used to have a fire engine forward control, Series 2B.
Yeah.
It was also very slow.
Very slow, yes. So you're not getting to any fires in a hurry in this car.
No, but if a fire is coming towards you,
then you'd find it's your stationary. It's fine. That's exactly right. Exactly.
Which seems to be what's happening here.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's what's happening with the fires down here, and we're thankfully safe, and the workshop is safe. It never got too close to the house at all, but it did get within, probably less than a mile of the workshop. So
wow,
it's close.
That's scary.
Close.
Glad you guys are doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing good. Thanks for asking. So finally, there is Land Rover in the movies. This is a show that I have yet to have an opportunity to watch, but apparently it is a worldwide phenomenon that is actually attracting people to the Land Rover brand, specifically to the classic Defender. I haven't seen this, but you are a fan.
I've seen a preview of it. I was given an advance copy for screening. This show is called Traitors.
Yep, the Traitors.
And I would put it in the reality game show, television, garbage genre.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Basically, reality television stars come together.
Oh, so it's reality TV stars on a reality TV show, game show. Oh my God. It's a Russian nesting doll of crap TV.
It is very much so.
Nice to know.
And the premise is that they all come together in a castle, and it's sort of a murder mystery.
I see.
Some of them are designed to be murderers, and some of them are assigned to be like investigators or whatever, and they have to name, the murderers as the murders happen.
And we're in on who the murderers are, or we're discovering along with the audience?
Yes, we know. There's some twists and turns, but we know who they are. And so each evening someone is murdered.
Right. And are they actually murdered?
Not to my knowledge, although you don't see them on the show again. So,
interesting. Okay. A Squid Game kind of situation there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, all the contestants are ferried to and from the castle in these various games that they play in a fleet of classic Defenders.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I've seen the all black murdered out Defender, which is appropriate, with Traitors front number plates. Look pretty cool.
Yeah, they have a whole fleet of these things. I want to say 6 or 7 of these cars that they ferry everybody around in. And so there's a ton of shots of the Defenders driving through the Scottish countryside. Cool. And, they film all the contestants arguing with one another inside the cars.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So if you like that genre of television, check it out.
Check it out. Yeah, you got an opportunity to see some black Defenders.
If you like terrible programming, this one's for you.
Terrible program that occasionally features a Land Rover Defender. Well, with that, I think we've come to the natural conclusion of this episode. And as it turns out, Ike is the murderer. So he will be returning next week. We're coming up on episode 200.
200.
Which is incredible to think that anybody...
It's a milestone in the broadcasting.
No one is left listening to the show except for our moms, but we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mom.
We do it because we don't have anything else to do, and for no other reason. But if you have ideas for what we should do for our 200th episode, please feel free to comment and, send emails, carrier pigeons, throw a brick through Ike's window with a note taped to it. And we'll try to integrate those into the upcoming production of what is being called the Les Miserables of podcasts. So... I mean, great. Looking forward to it. Pretty fun.
Well, I'll see you there, Stephen.
Yes, sir. And until then, we'll see you next week.
Adios, amigo.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Beres, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Beres. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.